Hello, my beautiful yellowbone, redbone, butter pecan, caramel, butterscotch, toffee, mocha, chocolate, cocoa exoticals. Welcome to the Pretty Girl Club. Welcome to the Exoticals United community. If you are new here, welcome. Here in the Exoticals United community, we support men and women from the following people groups: multiracials, biracials, multi-generationally mixed, and light-skinned golden people. Hey Exoticals, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am here to expose another aspect of Blackistan hypocrisy that I see. Have any of you guys ever been told, you don't look mixed? Have you ever realized that whenever someone makes that commentary, usually what they mean is, you don't look white? Why is it that whiteness always has to be the standard for mixed race? Why is it that a person always has to look as ambiguous, aka as non-black, as possible? Have you ever noticed that when someone says that a person looks ambiguous, what they really mean is that person looks non-black? Anyway, let me pull up my notes here because I've got a lot of smoke for Blackistan today. Being less white doesn't make you less mixed. I noticed that there's a huge hypocrisy where some people will say a person doesn't look mixed when that person is not white passing or racially ambiguous enough. It's funny because the same people who say that will also be like, you're exotic looking for a black girl. Are you Ethiopian? Are you Dominican? Are you Puerto Rican? But it's like, dude, why did you ask about those ethnicities in particular? It's because those ethnicities are known for multi-generational race mixing. When we look at the passport bros, a lot of those guys want to go to places like Brazil, they want to go to places like the Dominican Republic. Why? Because those countries are known for multi-generational race mixing. So this is why I actually have no problem including multi-generationally mixed people in this movement, because number one, Latin American people in general are technically multi-generationally mixed with things like European ancestry and Native ancestry. And number two, people who have a multi-generational mixed background, they have very similar phenotypes to people who are maybe a 50-50 black-white biracial or a 50-50 biracial. And also, they're still a part of the beauty standard. You have people coming from all over the world trying to look like them. Anyway, when it comes to multi-generational race mixing, a lot of people from the same ethnicity with opposite phenotypes will have children, and then their children will do the same thing again, which creates these same looks. This happens in the African American community as well. For example, a person like Meghan Markle identifies with her African American heritage. Now, I have my skepticism about Meghan Markle, but apparently she talks about being 43% Nigerian. But guess what? Even if Meghan Markle would have had a baby with an unambiguous black man, that child would still be mixed race. Tamara Mowry's children are still mixed race. They are not unambiguous white people. Drake's son is still mixed race. He is not an unambiguous monoracial white male. And guess what? The same goes for people with majority black ancestry. If Zendaya were to have a baby with a black guy, that child would still have a mixed ancestry. Darius Dalton, the dusty guy who's with Keke Palmer, their child is still mixed race. I've seen some people on YouTube try to invalidate others, and they'll be like, oh, that person has a low admixture. Okay, what do you mean by low admixture? Do you mean low amount of whiteness? Do you mean a low amount of non-blackness? Any person who makes comments like that is a person who pedestalizes whiteness. Any person who makes comments invalidating people because they don't have enough non-black ancestry, that is a person that is pedestalizing non-blackness. Everyone has a right to embrace all parts of their admixture, whether they have a low amount of that admixture, whether they have a high amount of that admixture. This channel was never meant to disparage one race in comparison to another. This is not supposed to be some sort of anti-black channel or a channel that pedestalizes white ancestry over other ancestries. This is not a divesting type of channel. This channel was made as a counter argument to the Black women's empowerment space who wanted to kick out anyone with a high amount of racial admixture or anyone with a lighter skin tone. The 25% rule that I got on this channel actually came from Queen Chrissy's YouTube channel. I like to call her Hypocrisy. Because a few years ago, there was a movement online that started in the UK. They created a petition for anyone that had 25% or more ancestry from another racial group. They wanted those people to be correctly identified as biracial or multiracial. They got upset with being kicked in and out of the black community. They got tired of not being able to speak out on controversial topics like colorism, texturism, and featureism. And I see the same thing happening here in the United States. And like, I'm not trying to speak against immigrants or anything, but I've noticed that a lot of maybe African immigrants, or for lack of better words, unambiguous immigrants from other countries, will come here into the United States, and then they will bring these colorism, anti-mixed race talking points here into the US, and then they'll try to project that onto people in the African American community. I'm not trying to say that colorism didn't already exist in the African American community, but if you look at the pattern of black women empowerment content creators, like the more extreme ones who make these crazy comments calling people ramen noodle head ass bitches, those women often have backgrounds from other countries. Look at people like I Am Aloho. Look at people like Chrissy. Look at people like Paris Milan. Look at people like the Mademoiselle. All of these content creators have backgrounds that are from foreign third world countries. Their black ancestry is not from the United States. A lot of these people who are making these inferiority complex YouTube channels, as a matter of fact, that's what I'm going to start calling that niche. It's no longer called the Black Empowerment niche. It is now called the Black Inferiority Complex niche. Because I feel like a lot of those women, they are taking their inferiority complexes from maybe their backgrounds or maybe their phenotypes, and they're trying to project it onto people here. And I'm not having it. I don't have time for the fuckery, okay? I don't have time for it. So back to what I was saying about this petition that was started a few years ago that Miss Chrissy herself even supported. So they created a petition for anyone with 25% or more ancestry from another racial group to be correctly identified as biracial or multiracial. In the US, if you want to receive certain government grants, as a member of the Native American community, for example, you also have to have 25% Native American blood. So that's where I got the 25% rule from that I use on this channel. That's just my core audience. I know that a lot of people feel like the DNA tests are flawed. I do believe that the DNA tests have some flaws, but I just made that cutoff because, first of all, there has to be a cutoff somewhere. And secondly, I just wanted to solidify my niche and who my core audience is supposed to be. So you don't have to fit exactly into that. Like you could have, maybe more than 25% admixture or maybe a little bit less on the DNA test. That part of it is not important. What's important is whether or not you can relate to the content. What's important is learning how to love yourself and not allowing others to invalidate you and call you names such as a squawking bird. I've noticed there's this new squawking bird trend going on YouTube where people are calling women birds if they don't have the typical wide, flat African American nose. So basically, if you have a nose bridge, you are now considered a bird. So if that's not featureism, I don't know what is. Imagine if I came on YouTube and I started making fun of an unambiguous woman's nose and saying like, oh, she has a big nose, oh, she looks like such and such type of animal. Imagine if I were to come online and say somebody looks like a gorilla. Think about how people are reacting to, I think her name's Erica Mena from Love and Hip Hop, how she called that girl a monkey. Do you see how people are reacting to her? They're calling her racist for calling that girl a monkey, but you can go online and call people birds because they have kind of a more pointy nose. It's the hypocrisy for me. It's the situational featureism for me. I've noticed that the black community likes to flip-flop back and forth. They like to throw people in and out of the black community depending on when it's convenient for them. But they want mixed race people or people who are not dark-skinned to still get out of their spaces and create their own space and stop replacing them. So it's like, which one is it? Either you want people like Zendaya and Yara Shahidi to represent you, or you want them to get out of your spaces and stop replacing you. I've also noticed that some people whose racial admixture is more on the white side are afraid of being replaced by people who have more black admixture. And that is silly to me. Is that not the same thing that the black community is doing? They're afraid of being replaced, so they're against anyone who's different than them. This channel is not supposed to be a racist channel of any kind. It's not supposed to be about competing with people who are blacker than you or whiter than you. It's about embracing who you are and what you look like, regardless of your skin tone or regardless of whatever your racial background is.
If the unambiguous community wants to throw us out because we're not unambiguous, fine. We have our own space over here. 25% admixture is enough to significantly affect your phenotype and change the way your entire hair texture looks, your entire eye color. That's enough for people to start asking you questions like, are you adopted? If you've ever been asked questions like that, like, are you adopted? Or like, oh, that's not your mom. Who's your real mom? Who's your real dad? All it takes is 25% admixture for people to start asking questions like that. So I'm sorry, but if you have a white grandma from Scotland named Gertrude, you are not an unambiguous black woman. And I actually agree that we should stop trying to replace other people and stop pretending to like be something we're not. You don't have to walk around pretending like your own family members don't exist. And it's funny because there's just so much hypocrisy. Like people, they want you to admit that you have background from another racial group. But then when you do admit that, then they'll say, oh, you making being mixed race your whole personality. Oh, you think you better than me. And then they start like going in, basically saying that you have a superiority complex. So it's like, okay, if you admit your background, you think you're superior. But if you don't admit your background, you are trying to replace others. It's the hypocrisy for me. So, have you guys ever experienced this hypocrisy? Have you guys seen how this is played out, like when it comes to Hollywood, for example? And also, why are we depending on people from Hollywood to be like these political activists for the African American community? Like, do you guys remember when Kenya Barris made that show? I think it was either called Blackish or Mixedish, or maybe he made both of them. So, do you guys remember when he made that show and then everybody was like, oh, he's a colorist. Oh, he's a featurist. He's a texturist. Everybody on that show looks the same. It's like, I'm sorry, have you seen Kenya Barris? Why on earth would he make a TV show and show loyalty to people who look nothing like him? No, people are naturally going to be more loyal to people who look like them. People are naturally going to want to promote people who look more like them. So if a person like Kenya Barris makes a TV show, who do you think is going to be in the TV show? So this is why I'm a big proponent of us creating our own platforms and like taking things into our own hands instead of like looking for a handout. I feel like a lot of people in the black community are looking for a media handout. They're looking for someone else to put them on. They're looking for someone else to promote them and to promote their phenotype. Like, hey, you need to notice my beauty. Hey, you need to notice how special I am. And it's like, no, when are you going to decide that you are special and begin to promote yourself? So that's what I'm trying to do here, and that's what I think all of us should be doing. We should all be starting our own YouTube channels, our own podcasts, our own Instagrams. Oh, speaking of that, I now have a Patreon. So if you're interested in like learning more about how I started this channel or how I grew this channel, or you want to do the same thing, then I will have that linked in the description. But I'm just tired of the hypocrisy. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.